Hello, my name's David D'Souza and welcome to the HR People Pod, the CIPD's fortnightly podcast, bringing you the topical stories and expert insights on issues impacting the profession and the broader world of work. Joining me today, dialing in from around the world, we have...
Hi everyone, I'm Adrian. I'm a HR talent consultant based out in Dubai.
And I am Alison Hodgson. I am the new country director here in the CIPD in Ireland. After 25 plus years out in the field of HR in various sectors and various roles, I have now moved to my dream job.
Dream job. You haven't worked with me for long enough yet, Alison. That'll soon change. And Adrian gave you a little clap there as well. I was quite impressed by that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think some might suggest that you're bound to say it's your dream job, but we're going to let that pass. We're not going to come back to that.
Poor David has listened to me throughout this very rigorous process, and you'd be hard pushed to disagree with me, wouldn't you, David?
David's going to vouch for you. Fair comment, never grow argue with both.
Passion shines through. So, genuine pleasure to be joined by you for this episode. This episode's actually a special one because it's got a truly international perspective because it's the 20th of May when we'll be releasing this. I sincerely hope you may or may not be listening to it exactly on that day, but that marks International HR Day. And so we wanted to talk about actually the international landscape, how things may differ and how things may be the same in line with the themes of International HR Day. But before we crack on with that, I just want to get an insight into what's going on in your world. So Adrian, I'm going to come to you first. Something that you're watching, you're reading, you're consuming recently that's kind of piqued your interest that you'd recommend to others, or you go, it's an interesting thing.
I've got young kids and my mind goes to all of that stuff that's going around in your head and all of those songs. But I think it's the last series of You, which is running on Netflix. As a social scientist, I'm fascinated by how really, really smart people behave in very stupid ways when they get into groups. And that kind of explores the way that people behave in different ways. So I've really, really enjoyed that. Not for everybody, but I've really enjoyed it.
Excellent. Thank you for the recommendation. Alison?
I have just finished reading How to See Around Corners by Rita McGrath. I don't know if you've come across that, but I found it really, really enjoyable, mainly because a lot of it was just common sense, and it validates what we all would see and hear on a daily basis. In terms of watching, I am watching Your Friends and Neighbours on Paramount, which is when it all goes wrong for a hedge fund broker, and he turns to petty theft of his friends and neighbours' houses. And everything that spirals from there. But my favourite podcast at the moment is How to Fail by Elizabeth Day. And she actually has just done a tour, and she came here a couple of weeks ago in Dublin and interviewed an Irish writer. So that's kind of my listening and my media.
Excellent. Well, and we will see how much we can fail on today's podcast. Actually, one of the most embarrassing moments of my career was meeting Rita McGrath, and I was introduced to her specifically because we both are interested in the innovation that happened around bubble wrap being created. But someone just introduced us and went, "This man is also interested in bubble wrap," and then walked off. And that was it. And she just kind of, she looked at me, I looked at her, and I went, "Very nice to meet you," and we both went our separate ways. Genuinely, like a meeting of Rita's incredible mind and my short love of bubble wrap. So I want to kick us off today by getting a real sense of, particularly for the region, the markets that you're operating in, how much of an impact AI is having, and how organisations are beginning to react to that, acclimatise to that, make cultural adjustments to that. We'll come on to skills a bit later. But what role is the profession playing in your individual region? So, Alison, I'm going to start with you because I know that was a topic in the conference that you were at yesterday.
Yeah, and we've just released our research, and AI was obviously a topic that was explored in that. And rather surprisingly, we have learned that nearly 60% of Irish workplaces have not provided plans or parameters for employees when operating AI within the realms of their roles. And even though 60% of workplaces have reported increased productivity. So there's something quite counterintuitive about those two things. And even more, an even higher percentage, 67% of employers have not provided any training. So in terms of the role of the profession, I think there is a lot to do. I think the opportunity is there. I think that we are pushing on an open door. And I think it is for us to really enable, support and facilitate ethical, responsible and sustainable adoption of AI into the world of work, making sure that the jobs that follow are good quality jobs.
Adrian, I'm really curious on your thoughts, because I know there's some really interesting things happening kind of in and around where you are. Similar story or different?
Both. So there is definitely some similarities. There's a big spiky profile going on between organizations that are really quite advanced in their adoption and organizations that are not at the starting line. Some of the recent kind of conference activity and publication stuff has been more about reassurance. If a lot of leaders are feeling that, well, the boat's gone, the boat's over the horizon, and we've not even started yet, and the feeling, the feeling that they're so far behind, it's like what to do, and it's like, just relax, it's okay, we can catch up with wherever we're at right now. You don't need to have gone through those early adopter pain points. So yeah, just down the road, we have organizations like G42, we have data centers and further investment, which is the biggest on the planet, absolutely huge, billions of dollars going in to make Abu Dhabi the world center of AI. No ifs, gloves off, they're absolutely going for it. And then down the road, you'll have a multinational that's being run out of North America or being run out of Europe, that's still using a 25-year-old HRIS and is still, using a 9-box model for talent, right? So
and Excel workbooks hey, all over the place.
You say that like it's a bad thing. I must take issue with that. So how that's coming about, I think, is fascinating. I've been absolutely blessed with this savant genius. A shout out to Sanjay, who's been my people analytics guy for the last 5 years. He's like a mercenary in the field. So when we're looking for something, it gets projectized, there's a lead time. Sanjay will just whisper and goes, I can smash that out in 4 weeks. Just let me prepare that. And I think he's not alone. I think there's a lot of AI mercenaries going, are we clear on the data? Can we clean the data so that there's no risk by putting this through? Agentic AI that's being run, he set that up for our legal.
Is that worth? Sorry, that's probably a good one to pause on, right? So we've spoken about how you've got early adopters and you've got some people who might be intimidated by where people are. Could you just? Well, I was about to go. I can explain it, but do you want to explain agentic AI and why that's a slight shift on from what people may have been talking about prior?
So I think it's the one thing that many of our operation type roles are worried about, that we can put something in place, whether that's hybrid or exclusively an extra team member, but we're not going to hire the biological version. We're going to create the AI agentic version. So an agent can be created that's beautifully prompted, that's so elegantly evolved in its interaction, that can do specific deliverables almost faultlessly. And some of our people can put that together in days. It takes months to test it, but it can be built in days and without any hassle. So HR is not adopting that too quickly in this region. That's lagging. There's certain fear factors, but we're seeing little versions of it popping out. So in-house becoming really common. that we can have that agent to be able to access policy through an interaction. What's the 3 policies that are going to affect my business trip or taking my team away? I don't need to access the SOP. The agent can do that for me. And it means that the design of SOPs and policies has changed. We're starting to see much longer, much more detailed policies being written because the agent interrogates it, not the employee.
SOPs, for anyone who's listening and they're earlier in their career or international?
Apologies, standard operating procedures, often mixed up with policy, but not the same thing, but often have got the same level.
Indeed, brilliant. Thank you. Alison, I'm going to come back to you just before we move on, actually. What kind of hope do you hold for Ireland over the next 2-3 years in terms of adoption, the role the profession should play?
One of the first points that you made, Adrian, is that it's not too late. AI is actually very young. It's in its infancy. So for folk that are listening and tuning in, don't worry about that part. It's very, very easy to get caught up, and there's so much available online to get your head around what the whole large language model world is and why it works the way it works and all of that. So I think the hope, if 60% of organizations are already reporting an increase in productivity, then, the potential and the possibility is infinite. And for us, it's about making sure that we understand enough of the principles of AI so that we can support the design of fit for future organizations. And when I talk to any of the chief people officers and the senior HR directors in the tech world over here, they are all consumed with fit for future organizations. So they know, and when I know we're coming on to skills later on, but when you actually talk with them, they spend their day listening, deeply listening to what is being said and what is being not said in their organizations, to make sure that the way in which we arrange ourselves and how we do what we do is impactful, effective, has the reach, delivers what it is intended to. So I think until now, there perhaps has been an overly organic approach to working with AI, and maybe now that needs to tip into intentional approach to working with AI.
So moving on, it's difficult to have a conversation around AI and how it is changing jobs without digging into skills in a bit more detail. So different countries will have different levels of flexibility in their skills base. They'll have organizations more or less inclined to invest in skills and think, to your point, Alison, around what the future requirements will look like. Where does the onus sit around skills? Is it for the profession to drive it? Is it for organizations to play a role in it? Is it to be driven by states? Where do we think that sits? And how do you create environments where actually people are going to excel?
I may not give the CIPD polished answer for this.
Okay, we're going to edit this out. Whatever's coming next, it's being edited.
Yeah, exactly. Career-ending moment. No, I've got real concerns about this, and I know many of the leaders in this environment do as well. There's a strong sense that we're about to, or maybe just about started making many of the mistakes that we've already made before by looking at skills outside of the context of application. So 50 years ago, our instructional designers would point out, sorry, you're looking at skills and you're not looking at where it's being performed, and you're not looking at the systems that are working there, and you're not looking at the context and the workflows and the crosses between teams. You're just looking at skills in isolations. Are you crazy? They would cry, and they would be right to cry that. Also, we're not colleges. We're not in the education business. We're in the performance business. And there is a hard truth. Education and let's look at skills within, role taxonomy. We don't develop that outside the context of performance. We develop it in the same context. So we're developing skills so that we can see outcomes and performance. And we need that performance to move into reflective practice so that we can work on the skills. Trying to do either of those two things separately, I would say, is a big mistake. And it's a mistake that we've made several times. Many of our L&D colleagues are suffering from the way that we segregated those things 25 years ago. And it seems that we're about to do the same thing again. Big worries.
I would probably build on that and say, the state of readiness for change and transformation has always been a critical part of anything and everything that we do in HR. And I think without understanding the context, the processes, the systems, the platforms, the interdependencies, the various stakeholders, where the handoffs are, where the bottlenecks are, without understanding that context, you cannot establish what your state of readiness is for adoption of new ways of working, which is ultimately what AI is going to give us all. So I think that hasn't changed for as long as we've all been in HR. It just has become more acute, I think, in this current world.
So if we anticipate a shift in requirements of capabilities to deliver performance and productivity, then you need a strategic plan that takes in all the different component parts of that deliverable and works it back into, to your point, Adrian, where we might need to provide people with support in the right environment to flourish and to build capability in those spaces. Is that a fair summary or not? Adrian, you look thoughtful, which is good.
I usually look puzzled. It's not about this. I just have deja vu here. I think the Toyota way spoke about this decades ago. It spoke about not worrying too much about the skills of the individuals. In fact, really average, just people like me, really average people who are nothing special in any way, but really smash those systems so that those systems are reliable, protected, committed, and shifting the focus away from rock star individuals into collective results, and looking at skills based without looking at systemic analysis is one of the most naive things I've heard coming out of HR in the last decade.
And that is frustrating, because I worked at McDonald's for a long time and we had a principle called operate as designed. And if you get the process, the system, the procedure, the workflow right, then just rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. Operate as designed. And you're right about moving away from the over dependency on rock stars, because that key person dependency is always what comes up on your risk register. It's always what comes up in the talent management landscape, who's ready now, who needs development, and all of those challenges.
McDonald's is just a brilliant example. And as much as it might get knocked for all types of reasons, you cannot knock their systems. World leading, absolutely fabulous at what they do. I don't like the end products personally, but great systems,
And they conditioned customer behavior first and foremost. And now what you find is that customers behave like that when they go to other places. So it's
brilliant observation.
Because
indeed.
of all of the five, they use all of the five senses. We are human beings. We have got five senses, and they optimize and use them all.
So first of all, I'm going to point out that I have no sense of smell. So you made an assumption about me, Alison, that you're way off whack. I'm one down, which is like I'm McDonald's worst customer. They can't go after me that way. I think so. Stepping back from it a bit. I think the point is a really well-made one, that you cannot address skills in isolation of the systems and the ecosystem that people work in. Equally, the ecosystems are shifting, and it is likely that what we might need from people in 5 years, 10 years' time might be intrinsically different to what we need from them now. And that's why I think it's really important. It's a genuine, it's not an L&D challenge in isolation. It's an OD piece, looking at the external environment and working it through. That seems to make sense to me, that it would genuinely be a systemic piece with an element of it around people. But it seems to me there might be something bigger on your mind, Adrian.
There's one observation I want to make, and anybody listening or watching in on this might have their own views. I don't hear various operation streams in the various businesses being anywhere near as concerned about this as HR is. I hear HR becoming anxious about predictability, standardized wallpapers, and the way that things are being mapped. The business isn't looking for that. I
Because do
say
you know why
the
I think that
business,
is, Adrian? I think that is because for some reason HR are still applying the one size fits all approach. And one size never fit all.
right?
Everything was always
Right? Yeah,
personalized. Everything was always
yeah.
by employee segment, by audience segmentation, by whatever product flow you were in. One size never fitted all.
Yeah, this beautiful, we get the corporates and they'll sit and do this beautiful OD work and the wallpaper and desktop exercise. It looks beautiful from a corporate, but when we try to put that out in the operations, it's a bit clunky. And if we let the field operations kind of design what really works for them, oh my gosh, that wallpaper's a big hot mess, and HR have some sort of aneurysm. But the truth is, complex organizations with might be the right fit for them, right? And there's nobody. It's just this fear of being out of control a little bit.
I know, and it's that really difficult balance between consistent and subjectivity. So it's that's a really tricky piece that
Right.
then legislative landscapes don't help in that whole space because they do
Yeah.
take a very homogeneous binary approach to most things. So it's always a fine balance and very back to the original question, David, context driven.
And I think that would be my point. So in some places it might need to be clean. In some places, McDonald's actually is relatively clean, right? They've got a model that runs straight through. To your point, Adrian, in other environments, it needs to be a bit messy. It needs to be a bit organic. It needs to have a degree of flex in it. And in fact, there may be innovation that comes up from people having to work in variants of that environment. I think it's less a question of whether there's a role to play in evaluation and support, and more a question as to how you go about doing that really effectively. To your point, not trying to treat things as pretty parcels, but understanding actually the system has a voice and some agency all in itself. Earlier this morning, we recorded a special of the pod with the acclaimed author Hilary Scarlett about landing and implementing organisational change. Could have had you two on at the same time. I think it would have made for a great conversation. But one of the things we were talking about or alighted on was pace of change and challenge in organisation and the impact on people. And in fact, living in quite an unpredictable world and the impact on people. So what role does HR have, or the profession have more broadly, in helping people not just cope with what's happening, but to develop resilience? And resilience, I'm going to couch this really carefully. Resilience is not treating people worse and expecting them to be able to cope with it, but we all need a degree of it to be able to cope with the fact that life is not straightforward and organisations are not either. What roles the profession got there?
It's back to the same issue that we talked about under the whole skills piece. Again, it's very personal. Resilience is very personal. Pressure and stress is very subjective. So I think for me, there's two sides of the same coin. One, it's about having the choice to work in a way that suits you best, and or would hope that your own triggers, you know the way in which it plays to your strengths, and you can manage that. The other side of that same coin is about role modeling the desirable behaviors. So making sure that the balance of being digitally enabled and empowered versus not being always on, because that's not a sustainable, healthy way to be. So I think it's the role modeling of the desirable behaviors versus the personal choice and managing yourself, your energy, your resilience in a way that works for you best, all within back to the other point, context, the context within which we all operate.
Going back to the core question, David, I think, what's our key role in this? The key role, I believe, is to help the organisation stop smashing holes in the bottom of the bucket from wellness. That's the first step. Pouring wellness into the bucket in terms of making sure that we've got leaders who are going to see, recognise value and support people, do all of these mechanisms that are, in some cases, if we were cynical, we might say sticking plasters and Fruit Fridays. I think we moved past that several years ago. Why was that not needed in previous eras? Some would say it was needed and we just turned a blind eye to it. Others would say we weren't sabotaging the workforce in the way that we do today. We weren't wringing the juice out of them and then wringing them again. We weren't pushing to levels of challenge and compromise that was just really difficult for employees. So every time that we take an action that drains from the bucket, we need two actions that are gonna replace it. And the truth is, a lot of organizations are not respecting their people in the way that they need to. And this is an afterthought, and it's a thought way too late. Don't expect that initiative to come and fix the sabotage that you were doing 2 years, 3 years, 5 years ago.
Yeah, and you don't want your efforts to be compensatory for problems that you're creating. You want them to be beneficial and in support of the broader piece. Sorry, Alison.
So just say I'm still in HR out there in an organisation, whatever sector. If I am on shaky foundations, how do I move forward?
We've got a range of resources that people can draw upon. Welcome, Alison. So we'll kind of push those. Secondly, I think it's genuinely contextual. So there's a few things you do, isn't there? You'd step out for the problem, get analysis. You'd look for your allies internally. You'd check your diagnostics. You'd look at the evidence base that sits around it. You'd dial into your broader community and the support that you've got to help think around that problem. And as with, I guess, anything that might be going wrong in organisations, occasionally you have a choice. A few years ago, I was at a conference and someone came up to me and they said their organisation was a very well-known employer. They went, it's horrific and people are being treated this way. And I said, you can either understand that you probably have limited agency to solve that over time, or you can step away and you could do something else. And I thought nothing of it. And then 18 months later, I got a message from someone going, I'm really glad that you told me to quit my job. I'm now enjoying it somewhere else. I was like, I really didn't mean it like an instruction. It wasn't an instruction. Yeah. That could have gone horribly wrong. I just meant like sometimes we've got choices. So you've got to work out, I guess, as a professional, is that a journey? How much influence and agency do you have on that journey? And is that a journey you want to stay for? Because you're probably in that position yourself.
Also, I would say, we see sometimes get executives and leadership teams, and they get cast as the villain with a curly mustache and the cloak and all of that. Not at all. They're just people trying to do it, trying to do the best job and not mess up too much. And oftentimes the board or the executive team may not be as tuned in and aware of what's happening further down the organization and what pressures people are being put under. I do a lot of team and systemic coaching. I do a lot of work at that level, and not HR, outside of HR, and they're horrified when they find out what some of their people, what their intern pressures been, what they've been put onto, and back to I quote the great. We have a savant coach out here, a guy called David Ribbett. And he would say that we promote what we permit in an organization. We get the culture that we tolerate. We don't get the culture that we aspire to. The agency, as an HR, as a CHRO, you might think you don't have an incredible agency to work, to change cultures in your operations. Oh yeah, you do. Oh, absolutely you do. And if you don't, you know somebody that does. And those leaders, I think for every toxic leader, there's another two really good, well-intentioned people, and we can get them on side and we can wait for them in the car park and we can get them. We can sort it out.
I feel all revved up now, and I just like so to kind of wrap up all this piece around systems. I think there's been some really good points. Kurt Lewin said brilliantly, I think the best theory is that which works in practice. Yeah, and I think that's where you've got to engage with the practicality of organisations and what's in front of you. One really short story, and then we're going to move on to kind of the closing segment. Years ago at a conference, someone said, it was a wellbeing conference, and they said to me, I can't get my senior team interested in well-being and all these initiatives that we should be doing in HR. What do I do? And I said, well, what are your senior team concerned about? And they went, oh, they're concerned about everyone getting burnt out. And I was like,
Excellent.
they're concerned about what you want them to be concerned about. It's just not the language that you want to use. And sometimes I think we've got to kind of get out of our way. And to your point, Adrian, like their leaders are people too. Engage with that, understand their perspective, see if they've got if you've got information that they might not have, and just make some benevolent assumptions to start off with. We do a section called Is It a Thing? And what we're essentially saying is like something that's popped up in the media that's catching attention. Is it a real thing happening in organisations? And this will be the first, I think, international version of it. So it may be happening in one place, not another. But we're looking at stress bragging. So that is people who are overworked and proud of it. The people in your office environment or wherever you're working just want to tell you how busy they are and how important they are as a result of it. I'm going to go with you first, Alison. Is it a thing you've seen? Do you like it? Do you do it?
Absolutely, it's very real. If you're here in Ireland and you see somebody and they go, "Hi, how are you?" There'll be one of two answers. It'll either be busy out or happy out, and it's a real thing. It's a real thing. Yeah, great. I'm busy out. Yeah, no, great. Happy out. That's how people answer you here. It's a real thing.
Okay, excellent. And Adrian, for you?
It's really topical. I'm not going to quote it, but there's another HR organisation that is flooding social media with feel sorry for us because how hard HR is.
Oh,
I empathise. It's really hard, but we're not working 16-hour shifts in an ICU. We are not digging holes and trenches in the rain. We are not, right? So as we've been lucky enough to work around different sectors, I just put all that back in the box because, you work with people who really have it tough and you go, no, I'm sorry. I need to keep, I can't bring that,
Yeah, look, it's a really challenging career and at times it is impossibly difficult and we deal with really difficult stuff. Equally, Absolutely. Like you say, a sense of proportions, one of the things we need to always bring to the work that we're doing.
Can I make one last point on that, though? In some wonderful people out here doing some wonderful work on mental health, particularly after COVID and with we have 1,000 people a day arriving. There's a lot of loneliness, a lot of depression. When that shows up, when we hear people feeling that need to say, look, I'm stretched to there's also a component to go, just let people be heard. I don't need to correct you. I don't need to say, oh, well, let me go introduce to somebody who's really having it tough. That's not helpful. That person is feeling it in that moment. They want to off gas. They want to do that. Take a moment, let them feel heard, let them feel empathized with. It's not going to kill you. It takes a moment. And we don't need to be so judgmental. So I'm trying to take that lesson on board. Not fully, but kind of.
Couldn't agree more. Like if we all just do a little bit more of that, that's gonna help, isn't it? None of us will ever be bang on the whole time. That's all for us. I'd like to thank our guest, Dr. Adrian Waite, and I'd like welcome Alison. I'm sure this won't be the last time you're on, but welcome to the CIPD. Delighted to have you here.
Thank you.
You'll find resources about the things that we've spoken about online and in the comments. We publish new episodes of the HR People Pod fortnightly. Not everyone is for International HR Day. That would be odd. And beyond that, make sure to subscribe so that you get the latest updates. My name's David D'Souza, and this has been the CIPD's HR People Pod. Goodbye.